So Jules, how did prison help you discover something that you're good at?
How did it help me? It helped me learn how to be on my own because I was really bad at that. And now I love it.
I hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you?
Taking time out to just reflect and assess things. You get to look and try different things, and that's how I find that stuff that I'm good at. So, yeah. Nice. Hello and welcome back to Life After Prison.
In these podcasts, we're joined by a guest who shares their journey of life after prison. And today we are joined by Steve Gallant, who served a life sentence, but is now not only an author, but has also received the Queen's Gallantry Medal. So welcome, Steve.
Good day.
How you doing?
Yes, I'm doing great, thanks.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. So Steve, you've had quite a journey, haven't you? A very unique first day out.
Yes, I have.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty well known now that on my first day out of prison in 14 and a half years, and when I say first day out of prison, I was still serving a prison sentence. I was in an open prison at the time, and I still had a couple of years left to serve, in fact 2.5 years left to serve. But on my first day release from open prison, I was invited to Fishmongers Hall on London Bridge, where a terrorist attack occurred while I was there, and I heard screams and intervened and ended up taking the terrorist, Usman Khan, down to the ground.
So when you think about that day, what comes to the forefront of your mind then?
Wow, I mean, there's so many different things that come to my mind, because it's just, there's so many different stories and different people that crossed that day, you know. Jack Merritt, who I knew really well, who lost his life, me being a prisoner, my own violence, the reason why I was there that day, the reason why I went to prison, my resistance of violence for all those years, the loss of Learning Together, which was a brilliant project run from Cambridge University. It's just so many things. So I have to sort of like sit there and think of one thing and then shift to another part because it's so huge, you know?
We can imagine.
I know, that must have been a lot.
Yeah. A whole lot.
Yeah.
How did you bring yourself to intervene in something like that?
Well, you know, I went to prison for committing a serious offence, and I made a decision very early on to resist using violence. And I did that successfully all the way through my sentence until that day that I got to London Bridge and this terrorist attack happened in front of me. And, you know, I as I said before, I heard the screams. I went downstairs to investigate, and I seen these two ladies laid there in terrible condition. One of them we now know was fatally injured. And I seen a lot of violence in prison as well. And it was almost like I was just fed up of seeing it. And of course I had to stop this man because he was hurting other people, but just a number of things that really made me just intervene and not even think about my own safety. And that's what I did on that day. I just thought, you know, I had to stop this man as quickly as possible. So that's what I did.
Man. Even as a serving prisoner, you know, like you're coming out on a day release on a roll.
Yeah.
What's the thinking behind that? What's the mindset behind that?
Well, of course, I mean, I was escorted that day as well, so I had a prison escort with me. And when we heard the screams, he said to me, stay there. And I was under orders to stay put because, you know, he was the man in charge. You know, on day release from prison, you know, you don't want to put a foot wrong, especially the first day out. So I thought, okay, no problem, you know, I'll stay. Yeah, but when the screams continued, I thought, I've got to investigate. I don't know why, really. I just thought, I've got to, because, you know, I looked around the room, there's a lot of academics there and people I didn't think really wanted to get involved in anything like that. So I just jumped up, went downstairs. And you're right, there was this little thing in the back of my mind thinking, I'm on license here, but something compelled me to go and investigate. And as you can imagine, when I did get into that let's call it violence, let's call it whatever you want, there was part of me thinking,
I call it bravery. Sorry, that's bravery, man.
Yeah, I mean, you know, or reasonable force or whatever, you know. So there was that part of me which was like, this is so bizarre, you know, resisting violence, being my first day out and then seeing this thing. And I actually said to myself, this is really happening, because, you know, suddenly I was like chasing him out of the Fishmongers Hall, and I actually went blank for a short while. And I don't know if that's like an information overload. But as I noticed, other people were involved as well. I thought, well, I must be on the right track here. So I just continued, But yeah, it was surreal, and there's a lot of things going on. But thankfully, it was the right decision on that day.
I mean, yeah, like as Zach said, I don't know, I would have just been like scared because I'm on a day release and just worried about the whole prison thing. But yeah, definitely bravery, because you didn't even let that like kind of stop what you needed to do on that day, which and you said other people were involved, so
I mean, clearly there'd been a skirmish before I got there, and then other people sort of joined in, and somebody handed me a Norway tusk while I was inside there. And also, there was other academics I'd seen there, and so somebody told me that actually, this was I was on the right side of the fence at the time, stopping him from doing what I was doing. I seen those ladies there, but yeah, there was a lot of things going on in my mind, and it wasn't easy, but like I say, it was the right thing.
Well done. I mean, what happened after that day kind of thing? Like, did you have to go back to prison? That's a lot to deal with in one day.
Yeah, so I had to go back to prison, and I thought, okay, I said to everyone, look, just say I wasn't there, because you know what prisons are like. I want to go back into prison, and people might take it the wrong way and go, you've got involved in a criminal offence, and you've tried to stop somebody. You're this, you're that. So I thought, how is the response going to be?
Wait, who did you tell not?
So I said to the police and the officials, said, look, just try and let's just keep me out of it for now. It's going to come out in the future, but let's just, I had to sort of process what was going on.
Yeah.
And by the time I got to the prison, everyone knew already. It was like everybody knew I'd be involved. So
news travels fast.
News travels fast, really fast, yeah. Because the guy as well who took us there in the van, the prison driver, he went back and told everybody.
Yeah.
I think somebody there as well called somebody in the prison while it was there, because there was another prison leaver there who knew somebody from that prison, and he'd called them. And so it just all got back. Anyway, so the next day, obviously I'm processing what's happened, and I found out that Jack Merritt had died as well, who was my mentor, and I knew him really well. And so it was just like, I just thought I'll stay in my cell, and people come to my cell and say, what happened, And I just had to, I couldn't go anywhere. I was still in prison. So I just had to ride that out and process that. And actually people were pretty cool about it, saying, well done. But it was just a case of just staying in myself for a little bit and trying to get through that really tough period.
How did that feel?
Well, it was difficult because I knew Jack, I knew Len together. And also I was reflecting on my own past and why I was there, and me using violence that day as well, which was very unusual for me. But I had to stay alert at one point because my name had been circled on social media and it was going to come out. And a lawyer came to see me and we had to deal with all that. So I thought, I have to switch on now. You've done your processing. Let's deal with what's going to come now, because my name's going to be out there very shortly. And I know that they're going to talk about my previous offence. So I just had to get on point really and focus and deal with what was about to come.
Sounds like pressure, man.
A lot of pressure, yeah.
Sounds just like an intense, so much intensity going through your brain on having to sit in your cell and just process that all. Because it's a strange environment anyway, isn't it, when you're in, you're in prison?
Yeah.
What about like longer term? How did that affect you, like being released and stuff like that? How did that scenario affect you longer term?
Well, I mean, initially, so when I knew it was obvious my name was going to come out, but it had not yet come out, a lawyer came to see me called Neil Hudgell, and he said, look, we can either put together a statement to release to the press, or we can wait for it to come out. And the problem was, if we wait to come out, then the press will control the narrative and talk about my previous offence. So we put together a statement, and when we got wind that the BBC had been speaking to my MP in Hull, Cartagena, it was obvious that someone was going to run. So we said, let's just beat him to it. So I did a press release from prison, and I told the governor about it, but she couldn't stop it because I wasn't doing anything wrong, but she wasn't happy about it. But I did it anyway. So out it came, and it was received really well. Even the Daily Mail were okay with it, And yeah, they mentioned my previous offence, and I was also given the opportunity to say sorry for my previous crime as well, and talk about Jack Merritt and Saskia Jones and the work that we'd done there. So it was really well received publicly, but the prison authorities didn't like it. And that same day, I was put in handcuffs and taken out of the open prison and put in a closed prison next door called H&P Grendon. So there I was in H&P Grendon, suddenly locked in this prison, like a massive step backwards, And I think some underlying trauma started to kick in. I felt really down, just first time I took a step back. You know what it's like in prison when you go forward. If you take a step back, it takes so long going forward.
100%.
14 and a half years I've worked hard to get to this position. My record was really clean. I'd done a great thing, and suddenly I felt like I was being punished. I mean, they said it was risk management, but I think they just didn't like the fact that this press release had come out. But anyways, so thankfully my lawyer got in contact with my MP. My MP then stood up in Parliament the next day and mentioned my name to Boris Johnson, and Boris Johnson said he had great admiration for me, of all people, Boris Johnson, yeah. But he said, I have great admiration for Steve Gallant. The next day, the governor come running over, took me out of the prison and put me back in my cell in the open prison.
Well done.
So it was a very quick turnaround.
What? That's the next day after the Parliament stuff?
The next day, yeah. It was a very quick process. That's the next day. So yeah, I went there, he stood up next day, bosh, I was back. So quick.
Right.
So I was able to sort of get back on track with my sentence.
I mean, how did that feel like after all, like having done those years inside and now all the attention just being on you?
I mean, it was weird because in one sense I was like protected by being in prison. There wasn't press at my door and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So I could hide away and like just release like bits of statements, stuff like that, and sort of keep a bit of a safe distance. So it was helpful in some ways, but it was also I was still in prison and I was trying to deal with it there. It was just a really unusual situation. I always found myself in these weird situations, and that's just my life, it seems to be. But thankfully, I've been doing an Open University degree in business, and Oxford Brookes University, which is not far from Spring Hill, and we're offering an opportunity to go down there and study there. So I ended up transferring my Open University degree over to Oxford Brookes.
Okay.
And then I started going out shortly after that to Oxford Brookes University from open prison, which was a really good thing. I was still affected by fishmongers all, but it was a great way. All these years I've been waiting to get off. I'm not going to let anything spoil this. So I just started going to university from prison, which felt like a bit of a counterbalance to what had been happening. Yeah.
Yeah. What's that like?
Going to university from open prison, it was brilliant. I mean, being outside, especially Oxford's a lovely little place. The history there is fantastic. It's an easygoing, very, very mixed, very laid back sort of place. And university is a great place, I think, to be when you're either in a prison or just leave prison anyway, because the relaxed environment. Yeah, you're learning. It's chilled. You're not trapped like a prisoner. And it was great. Yeah, it was great just to get myself back out and start learning and just engaging in the stuff that I really enjoyed. Yeah.
So as we said in the introduction, you're awarded the Queen's Gallantry Medal from the Princess Royal.
Princess Royal.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Well, there's a little bit of backstory to that actually, because so shortly after I started going to university, the world got locked down from COVID. COVID kicked in, and all prisons locked down too. So it was just horrendous. Like just started getting back out, and that happens. And I was going to apply for some time off my sentence because of what had happened. Because you need to get some time off. Yeah. And some lawyers got involved and started helping me. But because COVID kicked in, it sort of slowed everything down. And I think them processes are slow anyway. Going into prison is very quick. Getting out, getting time off is very slow. So we realised we just wasn't getting nowhere with the Ministry of Justice. So my MP, apparently Boris Johnson had a conversation with my MP, Carl Turner, in the recess after he'd stood up and mentioned my name and promised him he would do all he could to help me. Okay. So I didn't know about this. So when we found out that was getting nowhere with this application, my MP and a lawyer wrote to Boris Johnson and asked him to honour his pledge that he'd made, and he did. And a week later, I was given a royal prerogative of mercy.
Okay. What's that, like a pardon? Or?
Yeah. So it's like you've got a pardon, a royal pardon, which would commute the sentence completely. It would just disappear. But the royal prerogative just allowed them to reduce my sentence by 10 months. Okay. So I still had the sentence to serve, but 10 months knocked off my minimum tariff. That didn't mean I could automatically get released. I still had to go for parole, but just brought that parole forward by 10 months. Okay. So that happened.
And that's in recognition of your efforts on that day?
Yeah, that was in recognition, as a prisoner.
Sorry, how quickly was that done?
Well, that was in a week from the letter. That was a week. Yeah. I mean, we was applying for the normal process for time off through special remission. It's like you go for like a legal process, and the Secretary of State deals with it. But this other way was just straight to Boris, and then he did. I mean, it has to go to the Queen, by the way. So Queen Elizabeth signed it off. because it's in her name.
Yeah.
So somebody had to go and speak to her, present my case to her.
Wow.
And so she signed it off.
That must feel quite
it was
special,
pretty good.
Right?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, of course.
Have you got that on paper?
Yeah, I've got a letter. Well, the actual letter came from I think it was Lucy Fraser MP, who was working in the prison system at the time, or somewhere in that mix, and it's just pretty much like, you've been given this, you should be really grateful, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't the sort of congratulations, anything like that. It was like, we're going to give you that sort of thing. But it was nice anyway. And obviously I can't reflect on it with glee because of what happened that day, but what it meant for me and what it represented for prisoners, I guess, across the land, because we know how the press generally talk about prisoners and crime. It allowed me to sort of, so actually people can change here. So it was much more broader than just me and what happened that day.
100%.
Yeah.
And I guess that ties in with you being able to read some statements. You're allowed to control the narrative. You're allowed to present the other side of yourself.
Yeah.
Is it from that? Is it from these communications and these events that you got awarded the medal?
Well, the medal, so somebody asked to put forward the case, and in this instance, I believe it was Darren Frost Darren Frost is now my business partner, and he was the other chap on London Bridge who was holding a Norwell tusk.
Okay.
We've become really good friends. He works for the Ministry of Justice, and he put this application forward, and it has to be looked at by a committee, and then if they look at it and say, well, this person deserves a medal. It could be anybody, it could be servicemen, policemen, people in the street, anything. And then they agree on that. And if they agree that this should be awarded, then it goes to the Queen again. And so this again went to the Queen Elizabeth.
You saw your name again.
Exactly, yeah. Apparently my name brushed past their lips again. Yeah, it's crazy. About 2 months before she passed, and she signed it off.
Wow.
Yeah, one of their last.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was given the Queen's Gallantry Medal, and which is quite recently as
That's
well.
no small. That's no small achievement.
It's not. No, and I get the QGM initials on the end of my name as well, which is really nice. Yeah. So,
does it change to KGM now?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
And you know what? I'm glad that it's the Queen. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So
it is. Yeah, it is very it's obviously a very sad situation.
Of course,
how, like you said, for you and for prisoners, how you can, be this kind of person and to show yourself and for the people as well. Like, what is such a big transition from obviously the first day maybe you went in. How does that compare now to the person you are now?
Wow. I mean, what a journey.
Yeah.
I went into prison as somebody who was taking someone's life, and to take someone's life in the way that I did, it's a terrible thing, isn't it, really, no matter what happens and what you perceive someone to have done. And to be branded a murderer, I mean, I hate the term murder, I can't stand it, but I accept that technically I can be called that because I took someone's life in that manner. So it was, it's a huge contrast, of course, to going into prison with, feeling and being labelled as this thing which is quite low in society, to then coming out with this recognition which can be used for much greater things. It's a massive contrast. Probably still processing actually, but I do take it in my stride.
I feel like that would take quite a long time to process.
Yeah.
But it goes to show that, we're not just one thing. We can't just stay one thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I try to say, it doesn't matter where you find yourself, you can be in the bottom of the pit somewhere, but as my story has shown, if I can do it, because I was in a bad place, if I can do it, anyone can do it,
And people say that a lot, like, if I can do it, but it's true. It's not easy for us to do it, and we've done it. It's not easy, we do it.
No.
But then we're an example, so it can be done, right?
No, I mean, to achieve things like that, it can be easy, because everyone would do it. But I mean, but I think if you do find yourself in that situation where you're really struggling, it does take effort, and it isn't easy. You're going to struggle, you're going to get hurt, but you've got to get through it, and you can do it,
Yeah. That's what we like to hear, and we like to talk about.
Yeah.
But so what was your sentence for, and how long did you get?
So I was sentenced to murder and given a minimum tariff of 17 years. And the backstory to that is that one day, I was living with my partner for 6 years, and my lifestyle was a little bit hectic, and I was always out with my friends and prioritising my friends, and it had an impact on our relationship. So I ended up staying at my mum's for a bit. And whilst this was in Hull, by the way, because I was born and raised in Hull, I lived on a council estate called Long Hill Estate, and life was good. But I used to go out with my friends, we'd get into trouble and start fighting with like-minded idiots and stuff like that, and that was just normal to me because that's all I knew. I was also subject to a bit of violence as a kid as well, so I grew up thinking it was okay to use violence to resolve issues. But one day, I get a phone call, I'm out with my friends, and my partner had been attacked in her home by a man with a hammer and some other people. And to cut a long story short, I got wind of who this person was, or who I alleged it was, and 9 days later, this person had not been arrested. He was known to the police, but there was no evidence to say that it wasn't proven in court of law that this man had attacked my partner, but I, for my own reasons, felt that he had, and 9 days later when I'm out drinking, I find out that he's in a pub that I'm going to. So I wait outside the pub and call my friends, and they come round, and when he comes out, we used violence against him to such an extent that he ended up losing his life right there on the spot. So a few days later, I handed myself in. My co-defendant also, he was arrested too, and we went through this process where we went for the trial and stuff like that, and he did a cutthroat defence against me, but we ended up both getting 17 years for murder. We both got convicted of that, and that's really the start of my prison journey.
How do you, mentally deal with receiving a life sentence? Like, where's your head at this point?
Well, gosh. I've had quite a tough upbringing anyway, so I think in some ways, although that tough upbringing sort of led me to sort of use violence to resolve that issue, it also prepared me for them sort of events, like going through a sentence and just sort of swallowing pain and problems and just getting on with it. Because sometimes that's not always the best way, but when you're deep in the pit and you've just been lifed off and you need all the strength you can muster, and so for me, I just swallowed it and I just thought, right, you just got to get on with this. But I also made some other quite important decisions very early in my sentence, because I'd prioritised my friends when I was a young guy. I was, you don't drop your mates and you stick by your mates at all costs, all these sort of values that I'd learned on the streets. And I realised that when I went to prison, the only people who stood by me were my family and my partner, and all my friends were nowhere to be seen. In fact, some of them were giving evidence against me. And it was a massive slap in the face to me. And I realised I've been making a big mistake in terms of where I've been prioritising my life and stuff like that. And I also thought, well, violence hasn't got me anywhere either. It's just got me a life sentence. It hasn't really protected my partner, because now she's out there, she's upset. We're not together. I'm not with her. I'm in prison. We've lost everything. Someone's lost a life. So I made a vow to not use violence again to resolve issues. Of course, if I'm attacked or hurt, then I have a right to defend myself. But to resolve issues, I thought, and if I want to get out of this as well, I need to educate myself, because I felt a massive sense of powerlessness when I went through that process, and I felt was because of my lack of knowledge. So I started to educate myself, started right from the bottom, because I could hardly read or write, so I started from entry level 1, I think it was, English and maths. That's how poor my writing was. But I stuck to it, and I was determined, despite experiencing, seeing lots of violence and problems that you see in prison anyway, but I stuck to it. And that, I think, sticking to those promises and that course helped me, because as I started to learn and move from course to course and develop, it strengthened my own will to sort of continue doing what I was doing.
That doesn't seem like something you can do effortlessly, no. To continue to go through course to course, because you've done 3 times as long as I've done, or twice as long as I've done, should I say. And you got to find it takes a certain resilience, it takes a certain determination to continue. What talk us through that process? How do you continue to motivate yourself to do these things?
It's very, very hard. And I think what I did was a lot of self-talk and a lot of, I always thought as well, I always said to myself, look, good days always come. A good day will always come, and you just got to hold it down. You're going to have bad times. It's going to be difficult. You're going to have doubt as well. And there's many times when I've had doubt, even writing the book, when I released it, I thought, who do I think I am? Do I think I'm someone, who do I think I am? What gives me the right to think that I can write a book and an expert on this, but then I go, well, but why shouldn't you? Everybody else does. I mean, what makes you any less than anybody else? So I have these battles going on, and I have them in the early days of my sentence. But if you don't believe in yourself, then no one else is going to believe in you, are they? So yeah, lots of self-talk, telling yourself you can do it. Just keep going, get your head down. It's difficult, yeah, but once you start to get through this phase, and once you get there, you get to your next step, and then you can start to think about this phase and then getting through there. So it's just a lot of self-talk and a lot of telling yourself you can do it.